So microbes, we have bacteria, fungi, yeasts, viruses, protozoa, helminths, all inside our body, and 99% of our DNA is actually microbes. And anytime you start life with an epidural, you start it with antibiotics that are given to the mother. The baby doesn't pass through the vaginal canal. You are creating a new infant that does not have the bacterial or the microbial diversity because the mother didn't have the bacterial microbial diversity. And there's a lot of issues associated with that. So when something happens to you when you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you actually have to look back to your birth. Yes, you got to look back to your birth. Where were you born? What sort of exposures did you have? How many of your gut microbes got killed? And what was your inheritance at birth? What did you start your life with? And the most important thing you could have in life is the microbes, the single most important. So each of you have 3 to 4 pounds of gut bacteria in you that have the metabolic capacity of a liver. And every time you eat antibiotics, you are wiping out a liver's worth of bodily function. So just remember that. It's as powerful as your liver is in detoxing you. So for a person with chronic disease, microbes are the single most important, one of the single most important things you could give to them to detoxify, to give them microRNA, we'll talk about microRNA, and to give them the nutrients they need that your body just cannot make. So microbes are important. We'll talk about how to get them, how to keep them alive, how to feed them, fermentation techniques, and then how to make them.
Sell us them, Sushama. Can you get us them somewhere? Sell us them.
and you'll send us this.
Yes, I'll send it.
You'll send because
I'll send it to you. How do you get bacteria? Do you think?
From our food.
From your food.
Fermentation, obviously.
Fermentation. Any other sources?
Well, when you say food, I mean
like yogurt.
And when you get stuff from the garden and so on, you get all sorts of
unwashed organic foods. Ferments actually made ferments, and you don't realize it, but a lot of the foods that you eat are fermented. Your tea is fermented, coffee is fermented, chocolate is fermented, cheese is fermented. Good. A lot of the things, pickles and some of the other vegetables are fermented. So you don't know it, but you're eating nature's enzymes and nature's
And when we breathe in.
And when you breathe in.
I mean, in the fog, right? Especially.
Everything in the air, you're breathing in bacteria.
Well, when they do the sourdough,
it's
really important to have that fog.
When you dig in the garden, you're getting mycobacteria and bacteria in your lungs, and it actually causes endorphins to be made in your body, and endorphins prevent cancer. So it is that stress ceases to produce endorphins, and therefore stress can create cancer as a result of not having the endorphins that gut bacteria or any bacteria help you actually make. You would not make vitamin D if you washed your skin too much. So I would say sweat, don't wash your skin too much, go out in the sun, get sunlight, and you'll make more vitamin D than anything else.
And definitely don't use Purell and all those other.
Yes. No, I don't use
stores are filled with. At the entrance to every store, you have these Purell dispensers. They are made of alcohol, and not only is alcohol toxic to your skin, it's going to kill all the microbes. So what the microbes are doing is they are actually going into your body and telling you how to behave. Mm-hmm. What they have done is they've taken fecal implants from one person, given them to another person, and that person's nature changes. There's some very cool experiments that were done, and we'll talk about that. Their weight changes. The way they react to their environment changes. If they're depressed, they can get happy. If they're happy, they can get depressed. Why? Because bugs create what in the belly? Can anyone guess?
Acid of some sort?
They make your neurotransmitters. They make the happy-making chemicals in your gut. 90% of the serotonin and 50% of the dopamine is made in the gut. And without gut bacteria. And so when people take antibiotics, they develop psychosis. And we didn't know why. because you don't have gut bacteria anymore to make your happy making neurotransmitters.
And one of the things that I found really disgusting when I had, I went to a doctor who was right up there. She'd been to Yale or whatever, and she didn't give me probiotics. So I lost my faith in her right away because I'm thinking you didn't know to give me probiotics
After the antibiotics. Okay. There's one thing about probiotics.
Maybe.
One thing you should know about probiotics, they did this experiment with 2 sets of patients post-surgery who had been given antibiotics to wipe out their gut bacteria completely. One set got probiotics, one set did not get anything, and the ones that got probiotics actually did not grow back their gut flora at the same speed as the ones who got nothing.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And so now we're learning that probiotic pills are not just moderately good; they're actually bad for you.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Especially if you don't have gut bacteria. If you already have gut bacteria and you eat a few probiotics, they're not going to harm your ecosystem.
Oh, that's interesting.
But if your gut is cleaned out from antibiotics and you eat probiotics, what the probiotics do is they will tamp down any other kind of gut bacteria that
that's
are
good to know.
You'll tell your body. You'll tell your body you don't need to.
Okay, that's good to know. I was a bit obsessed about
your gut needs thousands of different types of bacteria, and they're located in your appendix if you don't have your appendix removed, and they're located in the rest of your gut, and they slowly repopulate after antibiotics. So your best bet is to eat real food that are fermented, and your second best option is to do nothing.
Okay.
So in life, doing nothing can actually save you. Doing nothing keeps you from going to the hospital, where you don't get MRSA, where you don't get interventions that you didn't need, where you don't get antibiotics, you don't get medications you didn't need, and you can actually live longer. Yeah.
Wow.
So there are people who lived with breast cancer. They got breast cancer 15, 20, 30 years ago. It started out as a lump. They decided to do nothing about it. And the lump kind of grew in fits and starts. They were 60, 65 at the time, and they were 87 by the time they died from cancer. If they had had interventions, I can guarantee you their quality of life would have been a lot worse. They would have died a lot earlier because we know that chemotherapy does not work. Yeah, radiation does not work in the long term. They would have had their lymph nodes taken out. Why would you take your lymph nodes out? They are your immune system. And the very thing that you need to keep yourself from getting cancer is the lymph nodes, and they're taking them out because they're swollen. Wouldn't they be swollen if they were trying to get rid of the cancer from your body? But they take them out. They take them out. And so now we have these women with lumps taken out. So they biopsied it first and spread the cancer around. Then they took the lump out and a bunch of the the lymph nodes. And now their left arm keeps swelling. They have lymphadenopathy, which means their lymphatic system is not working, and cancers develop elsewhere within 5 to 10 years. And they die miserable deaths. So there's a great deal of harm done by doing half-baked or medical interventions where we literally know 2%. We literally know 2%.
I think one of the things also that I've learned from you is when, I'm a bit obsessive about taking my vitamins and that, and then, coming and hearing about the vitamins from you, that was, that was sort of life-changing too, so thank you for that. That makes me
So you're not taking vitamins?
I take a few, but I'm so glad. I feel much better about the probiotics. Because I was pissed at the time.
Eat foods, eat yogurts, eat sauerkraut, and the raw eggs have way more vitamins and enzymes than any vitamin supplement that you could eat. Remember, your mom probably fed you raw cream and eggs. They call it the flapjack or something in Europe. If you go to that, or mix it with things of your choice, it's very edible, and you'll feel very good. Up like a rock, and you'll actually have less need for blood pressure medicine.
And it'll be high when it needs to be high.
Yeah,
because the body's very smart.
Yeah,
there are times it needs to be.
I know. You get terrified when you go to the doctors, and they terrify that
So I would recommend for you a more holistic doctor.
Yeah.
Take the, whatever savings you got, go to someone like a Cowan who can wean you off of the meds slowly
Yeah.
and change your diet because you owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're under a lot of stress right now. You're dealing with a lot of different things, but you owe it to yourself to do what is right by your body.
Yeah.
So understand that the microbes actually talk to you and you talk back. The microbes make 15% of something called your microRNA, which is instructions to your DNA to operate. Oh, liver, go and make this. Liver, shut off the supply of that. Heart, behave like this. Brain, you got to feel happy or sad. The bacteria and the viruses and the fungi literally change the environment in our brain, in our gut, in our heart, and how we feel.
What does RNA stand for?
Ribonucleic acid. Okay. Yeah. So what happens is your body is made of the chromosomes, right? 26 pairs. That's your DNA, and you make mirror images of the DNA called ribonucleic acid, which is RNA, to make the proteins that you need to make your body. But we are finding that your DNA can only make 30,000 proteins. Your body has 200,000 proteins.
Oh, wow.
So how does that happen? That happens through these, 8 and 10 peptide proteins called microRNA that are put out by your bacteria, by the food you eat, and they actually go backwards and instruct your DNA on what to make. They'll chop off proteins, they'll help to create new proteins, and they're the ones that help you deal with disease.
Really?
So you cannot say that, oh, I have a chronic disease and that's going to be the same forever, because you actually have the ability every single day with every single meal to change the outcome. So you get 15% of your instructions from your bacteria, all the microbes, 15% from the food that you eat, whether it's laden with Roundup or whether it's organic.
Roundup for me.
Yeah, so literally 30% of what happens to you is coming from the outside environment, and you want to be very, very conscious. No, we don't want to create a policy where we encourage women to breastfeed their children. It's horrendous. It's horrendous.
That's because he can't look at
Proposed by Trump, yeah.
Once a woman of breastfeed, they're not
eating
boobs
formula.
anymore.
Yeah, they're not customers anymore.
Not Stormy Daniels anymore.
They're not Stormy, exactly.
Oh,
And
Mama
he should
Mia.
know better. His son is autistic.
Is he?
Yeah.
Baron.
That is why.
Baron.
Yeah.
Which one?
Baron.
Trump's youngest.
The baby one?
Yeah, the one.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness, I didn't know that.
And that
never
happened
seen him
after
do it.
vaccines. And he's well aware, and his position in the early going was anti-vax, and now he's getting pharmaceutical donations and changing his
Oh my
tune.
God.
Yeah. Anyhow,
Sorry, I didn't mean to
back to
interrupt you.
microbes. So they mediate what you do. We're constantly learning and getting feedback from them, and they actually communicate with us. They will determine the nutrient content of our meals. So you know how you crave something?
Mhm.
Oftentimes it's your bugs that are craving it.
Oh, cool.
And if you change your bugs, you stop craving it. And they found that out with fecal transplants. There's a bacteria called Vermiculitis, and one is Bacteroidetes. And one of them cause you to crave carbohydrates, and one of them cause you to not like carbohydrates. So literally, bacteria can determine what you eat, what you don't eat, by demanding certain. They'll bite you on the inside, and you eat ferments 4 times a day, 4 different ferments, and it can be out of a bottle as long as it's raw.
And this is okay, kombucha.
Kombucha is okay.
I drink
That's
that
water.
every day.
That's
Yeah,
water.
but
That's
remember
water.
that kombucha has sugar,
Yeah.
and if you have high blood pressure, you want to eat less sugar and more fat. So eat ferments like butter, cultured
cool.
butter is a ferment,
Yeah.
or whole milk yogurt,
Yeah.
raw whole milk yogurt
Yeah,
is
I
a
do.
ferment, and very high fat and also bacteria.
Okay, cool.
You know what I found? Although I could get the creme fraiche,
Mm-hmm.
the Bellwether, is it? Or
Strauss.
Mhm.
Strauss. Oh, the Bellwether creme fraiche.
creme
Yes.
fraiche.
yes.
And I think that one was one of the on the okay list for Bellwether.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
organic. Yes.
So I mix that with some of my raw butter
Mhm.
because it's already it
Well,
starts the ferment. It
Uh-huh,
starts the culture process with it.
That's fabulous. Or you can take some of the butter and add a little bit of whey to it, and it'll ferment. And I have some in my car. You can taste it. My whey ferment. It's a little spicy, but good. Okay, so bacteria communicate with us, and when you're having cravings, understand that it's a lot of times that your microbes, and you want to feed it a diverse array of bacteria that you know will do certain things. So if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, if you have cancer, there's certain types of ferments and foods to eat that will actually help to populate your gut with those bacteria, and you'll feel better.
Do you know one up just offhand for high blood pressure?
Sauerkraut.
Okay.
Sauerkraut made with
sauerkraut.
sea salt.
Sea salt. Okay.
Sauerkraut made with the beet kvass. Very, very good for blood pressure.
I've been putting those in my smoothies.
Okay, not beets, but fermented beets.
Okay.
So you take beets. You take beets, put them in a gallon of water. It ferments, and what comes out is a powerful, powerful modulator of your blood pressure.
Okay.
Add some sea salt to it and drink that throughout the day.
Cool.
But the main thing is to reduce your levels of insulin, because that'll cause you to excrete water, and your blood pressure will drop literally instantly. So replace your bread, the sandwich bread, with eggs or lettuce wraps or whatever. For your pot roast, eat cabbage, mashed cabbage and beef instead of mashed potato and beef. It'll be good for Ellen too. Sorry, not I meant cauliflower.
Spuds in my DNA.
Yes. Your DNA can adapt to cabbage and cauliflower and brassicas. If you bathe it in enough fats, everything tastes wonderful.
So you really have to listen.
Oh, right. Oh, cool.
And we'll get to that with many children with autism. They crave carbohydrates. They have gut bacteria that crave carbohydrates. So to wean them off of that in the early going is very difficult. They'll bite you if you don't give them carbohydrates. And then slowly you put them on a high-fat diet or the right vegetables and the right ferments, and they get weaned off and they become better mentally. Yeah. So make your own ferments or buy them from the store, but get ferments into you like they were religion, like they were medicine. They're true medicine. And it is not just ferments. You want to eat foods that also feed your ferments. So now you got bacteria in your belly. What do you feed them? You want to feed them vegetables that you don't digest, that go into your lower belly, your colon, and actually feed your gut bacteria. Things like artichokes, Jerusalem artichokes, radishes, things like that will feed your gut bacteria. But the main thing to note is most chronic disease begins in the gut. Digestion is the key problem in heart disease, in diabetes, in Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Hashimoto's, lupus, fibromyalgia, arthritic joint disease. The seat of your immune system is located in your gut. And if your gut is built like a fortress, you will heal from chronic disease or chronic conditions. So you want to focus on the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which is where 80% of your protective systems are. And most of your neural capacity is around your gut. So your gut has more neurons than your brain does, and that is what causes you to have parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system. And the bacteria or the lack of bacteria can literally cause stress, which will in turn cause your fight or flight response and trigger your sympathetic nervous system. I've seen people literally change in their level of contentment after they started eating ferments. People go into psychosis when they have antibiotics wipe out their gut bacteria. And psychosis is when you're in an extreme sympathetic mode. Your gut is not making any neurotransmitters. So you're not making any hormones to deal with the stress. You're not making happy-making neurotransmitters. And your body goes into emergency mode or the sympathetic mode. And we know that that's very harmful for all your...
You better drop off some ferments for your
Humming.
Yes, what she needs is ferments.
Humming
Yeah.
helps stimulate the vagus nerve, which supports the parasympathetic.
Yes. Sing a song to yourself, poke your tongue out, go
While driving, I before I read that and heard about that, I'd be driving the car in traffic, and I'm going, and I was like, wow.
Wow.
That's why I was dealing with the stress of the traffic
Yeah.
by bringing myself into more
That's
of a
wonderful.
parasympathetic.
That's great.
You have to actively understand when you're in sympathetic mode, and you can do physical things to make yourself parasympathetic. If you're not driving, stick your thumbs in your ears, put your hands on your eyes, and go. Try it. Try it and see how it feels. Put your hands on your eyes.
This is interesting.
You'll see and hear that internal humming. Whether it's beet kvass or sauerkraut or kimchi or raw cheeses or yogurts or kefir or kanji.
Kanji is so delicious.
It's so delicious.
And are the recipes in this presentation, like for things like kanji and?
I can add recipes
because
too.
then
I don't know what kanji is.
that's what I'm saying. Show if she has.
So buy yourself a glass gallon jug. Put or chop up some cauliflower and then top it up with water. And add to that mustard, ginger, and other spices that you like, and salt. And then over a 3, 4, 5 day period, it'll turn into this wonderful sour ferment.
Wow.
And you drink that water. And it's dead simple to make. It's cheap. You can make it on your countertop. Kanji. And it's in the hot season. It comes out great. The concentrated juice at the bottom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So make yourself the ferment. I understand it's hard to start something the first time, but if you are a person who cooks from scratch, it is as simple as chopping up some cauliflower or beets, 1/3 cauliflower or beet, 2/3 water, salt, spices of your choice. Ignore it. Cover it with a tea towel for a few days, and then strain it, and then drink the brew that comes out. You will make a huge effect, huge impact on your gut biome.
Okay.
But you can take the cauliflower and put it into your salads and stuff, right?
Oh yes.
You know,
Salad
yeah,
and
yeah,
cauliflower is great.
I mean, people make
Yeah,
potatoes
it's
out
like
of
pickled
them.
salad. Yeah.
Mashed potatoes.
So make sure you get 3 to 4 ferments per day of a variety of types, and you want 15 to 20,000 different types of bugs in your gut. Strive for that. And in a short while, we'll see why that's so important. The bacteria make every vitamin known to mankind. They make short-chain fatty acids. They make all your neurotransmitters. They will make certain immunoglobulins that help you with your immune system. So they're critical for our development. As I told you, they make microRNA, which gives instructions to your DNA to make certain proteins. So you'd be dead without the microbes. So you may as well foster this ecological garden. In return, you can't just have something for nothing. In return for keeping your bacteria, they expect something back from you. So they don't want crap food, they want real vegetables, they want things with cellulose in them, indigestible fiber, that they can then digest for you. And we know tribes who can eat insects because they have in their gut bacteria that digest the chitin, the exoskeleton of insects. If you or I ate insects, we would barf or puke. But they can turn it into fats, precious fats.
Wow.
And so the Japanese, they have certain types of bacteria that allow them to process seaweed really, really well. And so over decades, you grow these bacterial colonies that do things that are very important to convert the food that you eat into the nutrients that you need. But it's a quid pro quo. We have about 90 trillion bacteria in our body and about 10 trillion human cells. So we're far outnumbered. And we have 10 times the virus and the fungal load. So we are mostly not us. We are not us. We're just a colony that's harboring a whole bunch of different and varied DNA. And it's like a big library. What's happening is, in the last 100 years, we've had so many changes. We got the motor car, we got refrigeration, we got medicines, and antibiotics, and vaccines, and Roundup, and mercury. Your body cannot keep up with the onslaughts. So what does the body do? The body goes to the library, which is your gut bacteria, and asks the gut bacteria, hey, this person just put amalgam in their mouth. Could you create antitoxin, or could you create something that mops up a metallothionein that mops up this mercury and helps this person live? Because your body doesn't have the protective mechanisms to deal with things that happened in the last 50 years. And so this is called augmentation. So you're using your bacterial DNA, your viral DNA to augment capacities that you don't have. And so when the doctors tell you, when someone tells you, oh, you're never going to change, don't believe it. What you eat and what you put by way of gut bacteria in your body can have dramatic effects. And I'll go through real life cases on what you do. And you get it in a safe, predictable, and nutrient-rich fashion in a way that your body can actually do it, can actually assimilate. So if you were to eat vitamin B12, for instance, what are you doing? You're taking one in the morning, and you're taking one maybe at midday, and one at night. And so you get the spike, in addition to all the chemicals that go into those vitamins. If you have a bacterium in your gut, it's going to make it on demand. Your body will talk to your bacterium and say, hey, short on vitamin B12. The bacterium will make vitamin B12, give it to you on demand. And so it's like a vitamin factory that gives you stuff on demand, and that's very important.
And we don't know all this stuff.
Yes, so it's very important. And so you want to colonize.
Yeah, I know.
And it's free. Yes.
That's why
Every
I don't
time
get
you
it.
go to a hospital and you get a dose of something, this entire library is being wiped out. There are millions of precious books in this library that are getting wiped out.
That's a great picture.
You do it 3 times, you're going to get chronic disease. You're guaranteed to get something deleterious happen to you if you don't have this repository of bacteria making nutrients for you. So microbes do a genome augmentation. There's a lot of this research has been done in the last 20, 30 years. And before that, for 50 years, doctors didn't even think there was anything in your gut or anything in mother's milk or anything
good.
Exactly. And so, but grandmothers always knew that ferments help you. The wise women, the witches who were persecuted and executed in the 15th and 16th century for condoning woo science against that age's medical doctors who used to do leeching and give people mercury.
Yeah.
They were the ones who recommended these techniques, and people healed. But lo and behold, they were healing people for free. And so therefore, a lot of witchcraftery was actually very smart women who were using herbs and ferments to cure people that
That's
the
what
doctors were of the age
on the
killing off.
mushrooms.
Yes. And so there's this thing called jumping genes or transposons. And it's a very cool concept because suppose I'm living in Marin today, and tomorrow I go to China, where I'm surrounded by a sulfur-producing factory that makes organic pesticides. Say, all of a sudden, my air is nothing but toxic stuff. At which point, there are bacteria in my gut that will create the DNA, that'll snip off, go into my body, into my body's DNA, jump ship into my own DNA, and tell my DNA to make chemicals that will metabolize or neutralize the poisons that I am eating. And that happens through a mechanism called transposons. It's very difficult for humans to mutate. It takes thousands of years for you to mutate to an environment. But this is how you mutate in quick time, through your bacteria. Because your bacteria, whereas you have a few digestive enzymes, amylase, proteases, and lipases, your bacteria have 300 digestive enzymes. So if you can't digest something, your bacteria will. And so jumping genes is something that the bacteria and your food can do to heal you, especially if you are missing or you're exposed to toxins. And in general, all of these bacteria cause healing through genomic exchange and through RNA, microRNA. And there's different types of gene repositioning. There's transposons, there's retrotransposons. They employ a retroviral, like reverse transcription to get back into your RNA and then your DNA. So we should never shun, like the AIDS virus. That viruses are 99.99% wonderful things that do a lot more good than harm. So anytime you eat an antiretroviral drug, you're killing off the viruses in your body. Anytime you eat an antibacterial, which is an antibiotic, you're killing off the bacteria. Anytime you get a fungal infection and you eat antifungals, you're letting bad bacteria into your gut and you're spoiling the balance, you're ruining the balance. So our microbes literally shape who we are. So touch hands with people who have been in dirt. Touch hands with people who have made ferments with their hands. Little children, they're not licking the floor and eating every insect for nothing. But they are actually collecting this library, this enormous library of bacterial, viral, and fungal life that's going to keep them safe and healthy throughout their lives.
And use your fingers to pick up the food instead of fork.
Yeah.
Avoid metals, yeah. Eat with your fingers.
It's just so to what we know. I mean,
It's antithetical to everything. And we are living in an age of extreme phobia of bacteria and viruses. With all this Purell and constant, sterilizing and so on, and canning. There could be nothing worse than canning.
And then all this outbreak of measles bacteria.
Exactly.
It's like that's the new plague.
Yeah, it's the new plagues. So 70 bacterial divisions. There are actually 70 different bacterial divisions, but our body miraculously only has 2, Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. Our body is so smart. It takes in the bacteria it needs in your gut-associated lymphoid tissue. It manages. So the body's like this mastermind that says, I will take the Bacteroidetes, I'll take the Firmicutes, the remainder is Actinobacteria, which is the Bifida Bacteria that occur only at birth. When the mom is making lactose, which contains galactose, which only these bacteria eat for a very specific purpose. So the body manages it like an orchestra conductor at all times. At the age of 0 months, you're going to have these kinds of bacteria. When you're 20 years old, you're going to have, when you're lactating, you get a different set of bacteria. When you're older, you get a yet different set of bacteria.
If somebody has, what do you call it, cesarean, does that affect?
Of course.
My niece just recently had that.
Absolutely.
The baby doesn't go through the
And also, I don't want to alarm my sister or anything, but she, I just say, and the kid isn't quite as well as the little kid that she had by natural birth.
Of course.
Is there anything that you can do for that
Yes.
baby?
She can have the baby play in dirt when it grows up.
Okay.
She can breastfeed the baby. The breast pass on a lot of the bacterial,
that's good.
maternal
I think she
bacteria.
has breastfed.
And she should, eat a lot of ferments.
Okay.
So that
I think she does breastfeeding. but I
and
don't
it'll
know.
make up. But a number of such onslaughts will result in problems eventually.
Yeah.
But if you're aware of it, because in a C-section, the baby is pulled out of this almost sterile uterus. It doesn't pass through the birth canal where the flora and fauna of the mom and dad.
I mean, I didn't know much about that, and I know some other people who said she wasn't. She's got a lot of allergies.
Oh yes,
She's like 25 now.
Oh yes.
And I don't know. Just
Allergies. Single best solution is eat things that are raw milk, raw butter, raw cream, or raw sauerkraut.
local raw honey.
Local raw
Okay.
honey. There you go. Lots of good stuff in them.
That's good to know.
So what this suggests is that it's the human microbiome relationship is very, very selective. The body is not dumb. It's infinitely intelligent in what it picks.
That's done right.
Yeah. And so trust it. And it'll tell you, oh, the sauerkraut tastes good. Oh, that one doesn't taste as good. And so you will know when something is good for you, and your body will reject things that are bad for you. So the body rejects pathogenic bacteria, and the good bacteria will take care of the pathogenic bacteria. Always. You don't need to add to that war with antibiotics. Your skin, 1 square inch is yay big, has 32 million bacteria. That's how much you need and have on your body at all times. We have identified about 1,400 bacterial species in the intestines, And they're not just limited to your colon. It turns out you have bacteria in your esophagus, in your stomach, 7 billion in your mouth. You have them in your small intestine, and a huge amount in your large intestine. So they're everywhere. So the pipe inside your body has bacteria. The outer pipe side of your pipe, which is your skin, has bacteria, and you want to welcome them into your life.
I think one of the other things I learned from you about how your dental health is so,
Yes.
I mean, we don't think, I don't know.
Yes.
I mean,
Minimize your toothbrushing, maximize your good fat eating, and the more you brush your teeth, the more your dental bacteria, which are good for your mouth but not good for the rest of your body, are gonna make injuries in your gums and go into
I
your
think that's
bloodstream.
what I've done to myself.
Yeah.
I overbrush my
Yeah,
teeth.
never floss, never brush if you can help it, and you will not have plaque if you're on the right diet.
Yeah.
But
No,
if
I
you
really do
if you
that.
bleed in your mouth, what you're basically doing is creating sepsis, where the oral bacteria are going into your bloodstream, but the bacteria should go into your alimentary canal. But they're bypassing your immune system and going into your blood directly, and they'll cause heart disease, endocarditis, infections, cancers. So dental disease is very associated with chronic disease.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Yeah, I learned that here.
Root canals, implants, amalgams, get them out. Get them out. Your gut bacteria are 2 to 4 pounds of your body weight. For every 1 human cells, we have 10 to maybe 20 bacterial, millions of viral, and multi-millions of fungal and viral cells. So you're made of them. This is what your alimentary canal looks like. This is where the 85% of your immune system is located, and all disease begins in the gut. Hippocrates is right. If you have any kind of chronic disease, focus on the gut, gut, gut. So food enters here, and when it enters in the stomach, there's 10 to 100 per milliliter bacteria in your stomach. Then it goes through your duodenum into your small intestines, and from the small intestine, it goes through the cecum into the large intestine. This is the ascending, transverse, descending colon, and this is your rectum. When you sit in chair position to poop, there's a kink. The puborectalis muscle kinks this part, and you have troubles evacuating. So if you have issues with digestion, issues with constipation or diarrhea, I would recommend you raising your feet 8, 9, 10 inches and having a bowel movement in a squatting position. Yeah, to get a squatty potty. But that's critical to be able to evacuate properly. But the key here is the bacteria that sit here. We didn't know what the appendix did until recently. If you were to wipe out everything with antibiotics, the appendix contains your library of bacterial, viral, fungal genome. And people without this appendix don't have that. So they recover slower. Yeah, so every little thing, you're born C-section.
Tonsils out.
Yeah,
appendix
tonsils out,
everything.
appendix out, you're born C-section, you ate canned foods,
Yeah.
you know, you had antibiotics 3 times a year in your early life. Pretty soon, your digestive system is shot. You have no good bacteria left. Because you ate antibiotics, the friendly guys are gone, and it has more room to be populated with pathogenic varieties that are resistant to antibiotics. So
you'll probably have it on a next slide or something,
Mhm.
but showing the pathway.
Mhm.
I know the stomach is high acid,
yes.
and so my question is, sometimes I say, what should be the order of food I eat? You know, how much attention do I need to pay to
keep you balanced?
where each thing gets digested mainly?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's pH diet, there's alkalizing diet, there's acidifying diet. Forget about all of those for a moment and understand that your system was built to withstand millennia of extremes. Famines, feasts, bad water, no food, poor food, almost no food. And so your alimentary canal is uniquely designed to deal with all sorts of foods. It deals with proteins in the stomach. So if you eat a protein and vegetables and ferments and God knows what else together, your body is able to identify the proteins and then take them out, dissolve them in the stomach acid. So this is where the proteins get digested. And so this is a very acidic environment. And you have bacteria here that can survive in an acidic environment. As soon as the food hits this point, the stomach communicates to your lower intestines and releases hormones like cholecystokinin and so on, and says, hey, I've digested the protein. Now the carbs and the fats are coming your way, and the small intestine, which is alkaline, it's not acidic.
Yeah.
It prepares to digest those foods. So when you bite something and chew something, it pretty much turns into a mush, and your stomach or your alimentary canal figures out what to digest in the stomach, what to digest in the small intestine, and what goes on into the large intestine.
So like the carbs don't necessarily prevent the stomach from taking care of the protein.
Yeah. Not unless you have a severe health problem.
Okay.
Like if you don't have enough stomach acids, a lot of vegetarians don't have enough stomach acids, and if they ate an 8-ounce steak, they would have stomach aches and they would have diarrhea because the stomach is not used to the acid.
Well, that's what happens now. I mean, everyone thinks you've got too much acid, and it's actually too little, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, and they give you all those horrible.
And to a large extent, you're making too much acid and not eating enough foods that mob up that acid, which is protein. Yeah. And women are the most guilty of this. They want to eat red meat or fish or whatever, and then lo and behold, they get acid reflux, and they try to mob the acid up when they should be changing their diet. And so anyone who's on acid reflux drugs should be on a low carbohydrate, higher protein diet, higher fat diet. Your mouth has different types of, it has mainly firmicutes. Your throat has a lot of bacteroidetes. Your gut has half and half. And so the bacterial composition even changes as you traverse down your mouth, into your esophagus, into your stomach, into your duodenum, into your intestines. The body is brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
This changes over time. When you're a teenager, when you're lactating, when you're older, when you're younger, when you're a baby, all of these are uniquely orchestrated to give you the exact components that you need for your health.
Yeah.
And by the way, they all talk to your brain. They all talk to your brain. So they're all good.
Yeah.
They're mainly all good.
That's great.
And that's the balance. What is good for one thing is bad for the other. What is bad for one is good for the other. Helicobacter, they said, causes stomach cancer, right?
I have that.
Yes, you have that. But
I've had it.
you've had it.
Yeah.
Well, but wait, this is what happens when you don't have Helicobacter. You get cancers of the esophagus. So what you need is not taking out all the bacteria, but to change your diet in a way where the bacteria are in balance, so that there is Helicobacter in the stomach. You're eating enough proteins and fats to mediate their behaviors. You're eating enough ferments so that the Helicobacter are kept in check by the other bacteria. And the answer is not proton pump inhibitors. The answer is not surgery. The answer is not medicine. The answer is different types of ferments and prebiotics, things that feed the ferments. So there's biological costs versus biological benefits, and you want to be aware of that. It's almost invariably a digestive problem. Bacteria sense their quantities. So if there is one sunshine and one glare, in a sea of people who believe in allopathic medicine, say, who believe in antibiotics, you're going to keep your mouth shut and quietly go about your business because you would get beaten up if you said antibiotics are bad for you. But if enough of you gather in a room and you are like-minded, you do something called quorum sensing, which is exactly what the bacteria do, which is you then say, yeah, antibiotics are bad for you. And you talk about it and you become stronger. Bad bacteria similarly do quorum sensing. So if you wipe out all the good bacteria with antibiotics, the bad bacteria actually mutate, and because the good bacteria are wiped out and cannot curb the bad bacteria and their behaviors, these guys expand in numbers. Once they expand in numbers, they say, okay, now we can put out poisons, we can put out endotoxins. So whereas, say, a Staphylococcus aureus was sitting in your nasal passages and throat without causing disease, all of a sudden now you get sick from it. That's because there's enough of them where they're quorum sensing and they're putting out a concerted effort to kill you or to make you diseased.
So no antibiotics are any good?
No antibiotics do the opposite of
No,
good.
like there's no any time you would never take them?
No, if you took antibiotics, within 3 months you're going to have this problem.
Okay, no, because I'm just wondering if there's any
Yes.
emergencies that
yes.
you would need to take it.
I had the dengue, and unbeknownst to me, I got Cipro, which is one of the most horrible antibiotics, in my drip in the hospital. And for 2 years after that, I got every infection known to mankind that I never got before. And the reason was I did not have enough good bacteria, and they were quorum sensing. The bad bacteria had collected in numbers to make disease in my body. So you take a shortcut approach by killing all, wiping out, and the same thing with chemo, the same thing with radiation, the same thing with blitzing anything with a poison, is that you kill the bad guys temporarily, but you kill more of the good guys.
What about with viral infections?
Same thing. Most viruses give you transposons. They give you they give you genetic material that makes you stronger, not weaker. And so the minute you eat an antiviral, it's attacking your good viruses more than it's attacking the bad viruses. But so this quorum sensing is something that we're learning about now. And it's fascinating because you sort of have this cultural thought that antibiotics are bad, and I felt sick for several years afterward, and you didn't know why, but there is a very good reason, because you're literally creating a garden full of weeds.
Yeah.
If you use enough glyphosate, you'll create a garden full of weeds. Kefir has many bacteria, many yeasts and wonderful things. This is just a partial list of all the probiotic, the beneficial bacteria that a ferment has. So I would say, go drink kefir, make your own kefir. And these are simple things for people who cook from scratch. It should be fairly simple to get and eat ferments.
Have you made kefir from raw cream?
You can, yes.
Have you ever done it?
Yes. It's wonderful. It's my ferment. It turns
If
into
I'm not
creme
wanting
fraiche.
to drink the milk,
Oh yeah.
I could make it.
The only problem is fishing out the grains from the solidified cream, but you can do it. Just stick your fingers in, more bacteria, get your grains out. I have done that, and on a couple of occasions I ate up the kefir grains accidentally. But that's okay. They ate every day fermented, local, raw dairy beverages. Yeah. The Bifida Bacterium fights cancerous tumors, so it fights tumors, increases your tumoricidal activity, it improves your digestive comfort, decreases your intestinal permeability. So your intestine is lined with a 1-layer thick layer of cells, and toxic exposures will break open that. And zonulins, which are chemicals that are exuded, and then there's permeability, and that's what causes most disease.
Is that like leaky gut type stuff?
Yeah, all disease
Yeah.
really begins with a permeable gut. Every single disease. And it can happen, the permeability can happen from heavy metal exposure. It can happen from eating Roundup. It can happen from antibiotics. So there's just a whole, and the only cure for that is a 1/4-inch thick layer of bacterial mucus. The bacteria make mucus and thereby protect your intestinal walls.
They just recall Cheerios for wrapping them again. I mean, not that I give any.
Oh yes, Roundup. Yes. IBS symptoms go away for people on kefir. That's the best solution for irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, colitis. A lot of bowel conditions get better. This is a description of the Bifida Bacterium. It's in the gastrointestinal tract, your vagina, your mouth, every orifice. It decreases cavities. Bacteria in your mouth actually decrease cavities. They fight cavity-causing bacteria. So if you put in total toothpaste which contains antibiotic, you're going to completely screw up your mouth microbiome. So there's a reason your mouth has bacteria, because they're very good. The bacteria put out enzymes that help you digest your proteins and starches and fats, so digestion begins in your mouth. So when you're chewing, you're actually digesting food. But if you had brushed your teeth with Total or some antibiotic toothpaste, that is not happening. The bacterial digestion is not happening. They actually fight the salivary mutants. They fight dental caries and streptococcus mutants. So there's a dance. There's a fight between the bacteria, and you, as the boss of your bacterial colony, can decide what bacteria to have in your mouth, as well as your gut. Anytime, if you are subject to pneumonia, pulmonary disease, the Bifida Bacterium, and not in probiotic pills, but in real foods, will help you fight the severity of respiratory diseases, because it actually increases immunoglobulins, tumor necrotic factors, and revs up your immune system in general. It increases your T cell activity, which is very, very important to fight disease. Reduces the length and intensity of flus, coughs, and colds. So keep your master tonics, keep all, those are good, bad bacteria fighting probiotics. So what they do is if there's 80% of the good guys, they will fight the 20%. And that's far superior medicine to using your brain power. You can leave your brain power for more creative activities, like, having friends and relationships. Reduces allergies and inflammation, atopic dermatitis. Anyone who's got any skin conditions, sensitivity to light, heat, cold, it decreases your inflammatory responses. And I could replace Bifidobacterium with just about any other bacterium, and you would have similar. This is just research on one kind of bacterium. That doesn't mean this is the only good bacterium. There's literally hundreds of thousands of other strains of bacteria that do all these things. Increases your blood sugar control. Akkermansia is a bacterium in your gut that talks to your liver and says, don't convert the glycogen into glucose. And so metformin, the drug, is actually a prebiotic, it turns out. It's an insoluble cellulose-type substance, goes into your gut, your Akkermansia eat it, and they send signals to your liver, which is why metformin helps curb high blood sugar levels, but you could do the same thing by eating a ferment. And if you eat a ferment, your blood sugar levels get controlled. So sourdough bread controls blood sugar, if you have to eat bread, much better than yeasted bread. Yeah. It manages your triglyceride levels, reduces the blood fats. So encourage everybody to play with microbes and dirt, and dogs and cats, and keep asthma away. And these are things that we talked about that destroy your gut microbiome. There's antibiotics. So the poor child started out a C-section. Then they got antibiotics because the mom was in C-section. And this from a mother who was on the pill, which is a steroid which kills your gut bacteria. Then they get their first vaccine at 24 hours, right? And the Hep B, which is made on a Saccharomyces substrate. So the child is right off the bat allergic to, not allergic, but it thinks of Saccharomyces as its friend. Meaning these are the kids that then have yeast infections. You'll find that autistic children, when they're born, they can't tell between self and the other because they got this vaccine at a very early age, which was made on a yeast substrate, like agar and gelatin, the virus, the culture, the disease virus or bacterium is cultured on that substrate. And if it is given early enough to a child, they don't know the difference between good and bad. So now they think this is good, and these children have yeast infections. What does yeast want? To feed itself. Sugar. So they're sugar addicts. They got the vaccines in a very compromised maternal body. They are now yeasted over, And because they have yeast, the yeast make them crave. These are the kids that'll bite and hit you if you don't give them sugar.
And this is what causes autism.
And that causes autism. This is one of the symptoms of autism. Further exacerbated by a poor diet, then they get infections that you get more antibiotics for, and you get disease. Bottle feeding inflames the system. It contains, bottle formula contains aluminum, heavy metals, it's terrible.
Plastic bottles.
Then add to that pollution, radiation, alcohol, dental work, and you have this toxic soup without even knowing. And you think you're doing healthy things. You think you're doing everything that the doctor ordered, but it all damages your gut microbiome.
So would that be part of the problem for developing alcoholism?
Yes, absolutely. Alcoholism as a national disease. The Irish and alcoholism. They were poor. They ate potatoes. They ate carbohydrates. What is alcohol? It is sugar. And so if they had a ketogenic diet or a high protein diet, alcoholism is a disease of nutrition. It's not a mental disease. It's your bacteria craving sugars and saying, give it to me, one way or the other, they'll get it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What damages your gut microbes is antibiotic uses, and then you get the drug-resistant microbes, and they're almost impossible to get rid of. People die. There's a 40-50% mortality rate. It also increases your risk for developing asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, and obesity. Children who grew up in they give chickens antibiotics to fatten them up, and that's what we're doing to our children. Yeah. The new generation in my family all has bellies.
Yeah.
Young children
I
did not have bellies. They were, they were lanky.
A lot of people were overweight, which I had never seen. Young people.
Yeah.
And my friend who's a nurse, she went, oh my God.
It's because the gut bacteria are not working. You're eating, and you've got the wrong gut bacteria, and so pretty soon you're insulin resistant. It can take your normal gut up to a year or more to fully repopulate itself after a dose of antibiotics. So be careful. Yes. And so you guys are rare in that when the first time I met you, you were asking me, telling me to eat antibiotics, but I'm not going to do it. Instead, she came to a fermentation class and ditched it.
I didn't do as much as, this is still a work in progress for me, but I didn't.
Just buy it. Just buy it.
Yeah, I didn't.
You're so busy and so stressed, don't make it. Just buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, and the name of the one at Costco is called Wild Brine.
Wild Brine.
And they have a raw one.
Okay.
Wild Brine, yeah.
So you got 1,400 species of gut bacteria. They all get wiped out by one course of antibiotics. Take a lot. And then if you eat 1 or 2 strains of a probiotic, guess what you're doing? Those 3 strains are taking over the gut. And they're not letting these other guys.
I did, thought the good thing was the
probiotic. So they're actually very bad.
Yeah.
It's a multi-billion-dollar business. That's very bad. The things that kill bugs: mouthwashes, aspirin, antacids, painkillers, laxatives. In addition, the aspirins cause intestinal bleeding and permeability, which leads to more problems and more death of gut bacteria. More proteins get into your bloodstream, and that causes autoimmunity. Never eat aspirins. Never eat NSAIDs. It just disrupts your intestinal mucus, which affects your whole health. So there are all these myths. A statin pill a day is good for you. An aspirin
a day.
Everybody tells you.
People ask me, think I'm nuts. They go, you don't take an aspirin at your age? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm healthy, but I don't do.
No, I don't either.
Yeah. Cleansers, antibacterial soaps, even the baby stuff, which has cute pictures and soft babies, it has parabens and all kinds of toxic stuff.
That's so
criminal. It's very criminal, and so all I could do with my daughter, I was like, no, that's bad. She said, Mom, it's Bifida. No, it contains all sorts of toxic stuff.
It's hard, isn't it?
Use yogurt to wash down your baby, or a little bit of raw milk, or plain water. Cleansers, antibacterial soaps, shampoos, lotions, potions. Chlorine in your water is going to kill not just your gut bacteria, but if you water your plants with them, your plants will not grow well because they need microbes as well to live on. Fluoridation, double killing. The spring is open, by the way. Everyone's been to the spring.
I have not yet. My car was not.
Oh, right. So drink spring water. It's not fluoridated or chlorinated. That's the single most important thing you can do for, especially if you drink a lot of water. Pesticides and herbicides, we always find out 20 years later that pesticide or that herbicide was carcinogenic and this. Just don't do it. Surgeries, colonoscopies, chemotherapy, and radiation will be very, very toxic to your gut bacteria. So when a woman has cancer, she has a lump in her breast, the first thing she does is get a lumpectomy, for which she gets all sorts of antibiotics and anesthetics and this and that. The next thing she gets is chemotherapy, which just wipes out your gut. So these are the bacteria that actually prevent and heal cancer. There's nothing more important than food and bacteria to heal chronic disease. And those are the very things that get
Yeah, I'm sure that's how I got the H. pylori.
And then the PET scans, they are fluoridated sugar. It is the most toxic thing to find out that you have cancers in your body, because it's lighting up the cancers, because sugar lights up cancers. But you suffer the consequences for many months afterwards. It's super important to create a house that is ferment friendly, and I cannot emphasize enough what happens when a fermenter has lived in a house for a few years. Like in France, in Katie's apartment, anything that I just put out on the counter, it would ferment the way it was meant to, because it was the Knights of the Templar, so it's about 400 years old, 400 years old. It's got the most amazing ferments, and the wood is imbued with good spores. And so create, if you would, that's your gift to the next person who comes into your house. Not soaps and sterile chemicals, sterilizing chemicals, but ferments that make the person well. And these guys will land on everything, cover it up with a layer of bacteria, virus, fungi, and help to heal your body and calm you down. And that's the feng shui of homes. Substrate. So I just put the jar out and would turn into this, that, or the other. And so they know selectively what foods to go for, the spores. Pollutants, toxic metals will disrupt your gut bacteria. Formaldehyde, these are all vaccine ingredients, but all sorts of drugs have all sorts of very toxic ingredients. Heavy metals, dental amalgams, aluminum, titanium implants, very, very toxic to your gut bacteria. Sterilized foods, the ultra high temperature, all the milk, anything that comes in these kind of cartons.
Ultra pasteurized.
Ultra, coconut water, milk, and almond milk, and now they have, what do they have? Oatmeal milk. Which is just toxic.
Bio coconut.
Right, bio, yes, exactly. Bio real coconut. So the pasteurization kills the bacteria and allows bad bacteria to grow. As a matter of fact, it doesn't eliminate. It manages to keep many of the bad bacteria, but it manages to kill the good bacteria, the natural enzymes, and so on. And why is it done? To extend shelf life, really. So it's not done for your or my health. Those are things that damage gut microbiomes, artificial food coloring. So anytime you eat processed outside food contains invariably artificial food coloring. Very antifungal, antibacterial, and it's considered to be positive, a good attribute in that food, but because they are using it as a preservative, but you want food that goes bad.
No, not that goes bad, that ferments.
You want food that ferments, excuse me. And the other thing that damages gut microbiome is bad fats or altered fats or trans fatty acids, and you never want to touch this stuff, the margarines and the Criscos and the other fats.
They put trans fats in kids' baby food.
The fats are needed to produce and maintain your cell walls. And anything that is not a good barrier between your cellular life and the outside world is very, very toxic. And so when cells don't have good barriers, microbial endotoxins can get in. Bad fats will cause certain bacteria that kill off those fats or eat those fats to proliferate in your gut. And these are fats that lead to permeable cell walls in particular. And your gut has to be a solid wall. So microbial, so this is the soil, the cell wall is the barrier to the outside world, and they call it the soil of the field, where the protective bacterial microflora live and flourish. The right ones have to flourish. They're finding bacteria in your blood serum everywhere now, the good bacteria. Carbohydrates will cause pathogenic bacteria, yeast to proliferate, because yeast feed on simple sugars. Alcohol feeds on simple sugars. It's present in the body, but it is managed by your bacteria. The rod-shaped creatures manage the yeast. If you eat an antibiotic, then the yeast go up. When the yeast go up, they make you crave carbohydrates. So you want more sugar. So initially in the early going, as you go from a carb-heavy diet to a fat-heavy diet to burn, because you need something to burn your energy with, and it's either carbs or it's fats. So you're not eating carbs. Many women made the mistake of not eating enough fats, because it's been drummed into our brains that fats are bad.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But if you eat the fats, gradually increase, gradually your cravings for sugary things will decrease, because your yeast population is going to go down. And the right bacterial garden will grow in your belly. Drugs. Lipitor will destroy microbes. All these iron in fortified cereal will destroy gut bacteria. And as a matter of fact, it will create pathogenic bacterial loads. Because all the cereals are made at 1500 psi. They contain iron. You can literally put a magnet in a cereal and it'll collect iron files. That's inorganic iron. That's very toxic. Yes. And in a high iron environment, things like the plague bacteria. So you have these epidemics of infections in kids who are eating processed foods. How could they not?
Yeah.
How could they not?
These are the box.
Yeah. And then vaccines. The variety and diversity of vaccines has gone from one or two, probably when you were young, you had the smallpox and maybe a polio, to 12 and 15 in my, after my time, to about 25 during my daughter's time, to about 150 now over the life of a person. And this trend is going to continue, and these are very toxic to your microbiome.
Marin now has the highest vaccine rate that it's ever had.
Oh my goodness!
Well, it's a big war
and
going
the highest
on now,
autism rate
and
too.
There's a big war going on with the measles vaccine.
And the measles vaccine is happening largely in children who were vaccinated for the measles.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So the vaccines don't work,
Yeah,
but they're causing all sorts of
because
other
we all
diseases.
had measles.
Exactly. Only the actual disease will give you lifetime immunity against the disease.
Because I talked about that with my sisters, because we all had the measles, one got it, we all got it.
That was
My
it.
family was my immune
That's
system.
how you prevent cancer later on in life. At risk here are armed forces personnel, missionaries, nurses, seniors under care. They will not accept senior citizens into homes or care unless they are fully vaccinated. And that's the best way to turn them into comatose, money-making bodies that are just barely alive enough to survive, but can't walk, can't talk, don't have a working body. And now teachers, children are definitely under attack.
Teachers don't have enough to deal with.
Teachers, nurses, healthcare professionals, all being forced. Vaccines contain a whole bunch of really toxic things: adjuvants, stabilizers, preservers, purifiers, and also viruses and bacteria that are contaminants. So the polio vaccine that you guys ate had SV40, which was the monkey virus that caused a whole bunch of cancers later on in these people 30 and 40 years later. So the vaccines were bad news from the time that they were first invented. And the vaccines were given at a time when the disease rate was down 99%. So it wasn't the vaccines that saved humanity, it was the sanitation system.
And I had two fathers in my chapters classes that got contracted polio from their kids getting the polio vaccine by changing their diapers and handling them.
There we go, the live vaccine. A lot of chemicals, tons and tons of chemicals. As you will notice that the first vaccine came out somewhere here, so 1950s, and most of the vaccine-related deaths had already disappeared by then. So the vaccines did not come in and save the day. To the contrary, there were actually bumps of these same diseases after vaccination. And that should give people pause, why,
If they're smart enough.
yeah, if they're smart enough. So what we're doing is exchanging short-term acute self-limiting diseases for long-term chronic degenerative diseases, and that results in a destruction of our microbiome. So we're taking a 2-day flu and we're turning it into a lifelong chronic disease. We're taking a small infection and turning it into autism and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis and severe lifelong diseases for which, there's no medication for sure other than palliative.
Yeah. Stuff,
And these can all be turned around if you change your microbiome.
Yeah.
The mRNA is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Your body's always regenerating itself. Roundup. I'll do a special thing on Roundup later, but for now, sunscreen lotions. Sunscreen lotions are deadly for skin cancer. They have titanium, they have nanoparticles that escape into your body and cause, your hair is 80,000 nanometers, and the nanoparticles in sunscreen lotions are 100 nanometers. They easily pass through your skin into your vital organs and create havoc. So they kill all the coral reefs, and people wear sunscreen and then go into the water and destroy marine life. It's just terrible, and a whole bunch of chemicals. GMO corn, GMO stuff will cause tumors, and kill off your microbiome.